Good afternoon, friends and family of Grace Lutheran Church. I'm excited today to talk to you guys about a true classic, to quote Billy, our treasurer. When he walked into the church today and asked me what hymn we were singing on Sunday, I told him, "Let Us Ever Walk with Jesus," which is number 685 in the service book. And he's right. It absolutely is a classic. We have been singing this hymn in the LCMS since literally our inception. In 1847, it was printed in the Kirchengesangbuch, which was our first hymnal official publication of the LCMS, um, our German language hymn book, in case you didn't notice by the title of it. But it has also then been printed in every single English language hymn book since that time. And if we wrote another hymnal next year, this hymn would be in it. It is a Lutheran classic. And I want to talk today about the text. I don't want to read the text to you, we have a limited amount of time, but just about the four verses and the four things that we do with Jesus in this hymn. Let us ever walk with Jesus. Let us suffer here with Jesus. Let us gladly die with Jesus. And let us also live with Jesus. So walk, suffer, die, and live. If we read just these words, and actually even if we sing this hymn without really thinking about it, we might assume that this is a hymn about the life cycle of a believer. So like our lives here, and then our death and the afterlife, or our life in heaven. But if we look closely at the text, we see that it's actually about the life of a Christian here. This hymn is found in the sanctification section of our hymnal. Sanctification, or being made holy. So talking about the road that we walk here, our lives in faith now. So verse 1, talking about walking with Jesus, is a straightforward verse about living the life of a believer, following Jesus' example, motivated by faith and hope and love, and following where Jesus guides. Super easy, right? Done. Simple. Well, not so much. Not always, anyway. Verse 2 says, "Let us suffer here with Jesus." And the reality is that in this world, we are going to suffer. We are going to have trouble. The world, Jesus says, hates Jesus and those who believe in him. So we will have trouble and suffering here. But at the same time that Jesus tells his disciples this, he also reminds them that they needn't lose hope because Jesus has overcome the world. And now he gives that victory to us even as we suffer here. And where do we get that victory? Well, I think that brings us right into verses 3 and 4, which talk about dying with Jesus and living with Jesus. When you, as a good biblical theologian, think about dying and living with Jesus, what event or time in the life of a Christian do you think of? Baptism, I hope you all said, right? Baptism. One of the scripture references, which you can always find at the bottom of a page for a hymn, one of the things that they list here as a reference is Romans chapter 6, which talks about being buried by baptism into Jesus' death, in order that just as Christ was raised from the dead, we too might walk in newness of life. So verses 3 and 4, by our baptisms we die with Christ and we live with Christ. God puts to death the power of sin and death, and he makes us alive again to walk with Jesus. And that really brings us full circle here. It's almost like verses 2 through 4 are an explanation of verse 1. To walk with Jesus here is to suffer and to die to sin and to self and to live as the justified, sanctified little Christs that we are. And the best news in this hymn is that it isn't just a command to walk with Jesus, suffer and die and live with Jesus. All of these verses also contain that gospel message that Jesus has already done the work for us. So now, because he has crucified us and made us alive with him, we are able to walk this road with Jesus, and to follow him here, and also to look forward to that day when we will live with him in heaven. So thanks be to God for that good news. I really like this hymn. Like Billy said, it's a classic. So I look forward to singing it with you guys this week in church. So look it up in your free time and look over it so that you're all prepared for Sunday. Pastor has done something different with it this week. He split it up, so we're going to sing it kind of scattered throughout our readings. And that's cool because we'll be able to see how it kind of relates to each one of them. But also good to remember how it all fits together as one whole story of the sanctified life of a Christian. We'll see you on Sunday.